What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean O'Malley takes aim at Merab Dvalishvili. Bantamweight #1 contender Sugar Sean O'Malley may have a fight with Aljamain Sterling on the horizon. However, that hasn't stopped the streaking contender from engaging in an ongoing beef with Merab Dvalishvili. After Sterling defeated Henry Cejudo at UFC 288, O'Malley was quickly welcomed to the octagon for a stare-down. Quickly, tensions began to spill over as the Funkmaster's good friend and teammate Merab Dvalishvili refused to give back Sugar Sean's jacket. In the wake of the fight and the stare-down, O'Malley and Dvalishvili have continued to trade verbal blows, with Sugar Sean claiming that he thought Dvalishvili was a coke guy, while the Machine continues to wear the jacket, vowing to return it after the Funkmaster defeats O'Malley. Heading into the weekend, O'Malley took to Twitter to react to Dvalishvili's comments regarding his jacket, tweeting, "The most exciting moment in Merab's career was when I gave him my jacket to hold." Although it sounded as though Henry Cejudo would wind up competing against the Machine, UFC President Dana White recently revealed that Triple C has been eager to jump in for Aljamain Sterling should the champion find himself unable to compete at UFC 292 in Boston. While a fight between Sterling and O'Malley seems to be a done deal for UFC 292, leaving Cejudo to fight Dvalishvili, the former two-division champion recently spoke in a video where he said that he would be willing to serve as the backup fighter for the upcoming bantamweight title fight. Should his services not wind up being needed, Cejudo still has eyes on the Machine. He spoke in a video released on his YouTube channel saying,
"I wanted Merab, and I'm still willing to wait for Merab. But if that fight with Sean O'Malley happens to open up, I'm 100% in Dana White. If the UFC does want to have me as a backup." Typically, I wouldn't be that type of guy that would do things like that, but right now, I don't have the gold around my waist, so count me in there too.
From the sounds of things, with Sterling and O'Malley both willing to compete, Cejudo could in fact wind up fighting Dvalishvili as initially planned. Whether or not that fight takes place on the UFC 292 card, only time will tell. Dana White reacts to Paulo Costa vs Ikram Aliskerov fight. Recently, Dana White announced numerous thrilling matchups for the UFC 291 card in Salt Lake City, Utah. One of the fights announced for the card is a middleweight clash between Paulo Costa and Ikram Aliskerov. The fight will mark the first for Costa since re-signing with the UFC. Following his clash with Luke Rockhold back in August, Costa was reportedly set to fight Robert Whittaker in Perth. However, the fight never came to fruition. Since then, Costa has reportedly re-signed with the UFC, and from the sounds of things, on the UFC's end, the fight between he and Aliskerov is good to go for the end of July. During a recent interview with AG Fight, White spoke about the negotiations with Costa, saying,
"You know, our job is to get deals done, and we finally got him, dialed in, and it'll be fun to see him fight in Utah." I mean, his last fight with Rockhold was awesome. I mean, it was an incredible war. It's one of those fights that if you were there that night live or watched it on TV, it's a fight you'll never forget. So he's fun to watch. It'll be good to have him back.
Prior to the fight with Aliskerov being finalized, Costa was linked to a fight with Khamzat Chimaev, who seems poised to move up to 185 pounds in the wake of his catastrophic UFC 279 fight week weight cut. Chimaev, who defeated Aliskerov several years ago, was quick to weigh in on the fight, while also taking shots at Costa in a video for his YouTube channel, where he stated,
I think so. The guy will beat him as well. So Paulo is not good. He just talked too much, and he beat nobody. Close fight against Romero. Only the fighter he wins against. Other people, I don't know. Nobody knows that guys. I don't know who be beat.
How do you see things playing out between Costa and Aliskerov? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. UFC Fight Updates. This week saw several exciting fights added to upcoming cards. Without further ado, let's jump right in. First up on our calendar, we have two fights added to the upcoming UFC Fight Night Nashville card on August 5th. The card will see Tagir Ulanbekov compete against Jake Hadley, as well as Ode Osborne compete against Asu Almabayev. Ulanbekov is fresh off a first-round submission win over Nate Maness, which returned him to the win column after suffering a decision loss to Tim Elliott at UFC 272. On the flip side, Hadley will be looking to make it 3 straight since earning his contract on Dana White's Contender Series back in 2021. Most recently, Hadley defeated Malcolm Gordon in March at UFC 286. In the case of Ode Osborne versus Asu Almabayev, Osborne will be looking to build on a split decision victory over Charles Johnson back in February, while Almabayev will be entering his UFC debut on a 13-fight win streak. Last but certainly not least, we have a clash between Vicente Luque and Rafael Dos Anjos, which is set to take place at UFC Vegas 78 on August 12th. The fight was originally scheduled to take place on July 15th. However, it has since been moved to the August 12th card. Dos Anjos is coming off a win over Brian Barberena back in December, which will give him plenty of momentum heading into the pivotal showdown. On the flip side, Luque will be looking to snap a 2-fight skid that saw him lose to Bilal Muhammad and Jeff Neal last year. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Randy Couture thinks Jones vs Ngannou fight isn't out of the question. After Francis Ngannou signed with the PFL, the general consensus was that the odds of a fight between he and John Bones Jones happening were incredibly slim. Whatever little hope for the fight was left was quickly crushed by Dana White, who shut the door on any potential talk of Ngannou returning to the UFC. Despite that, former UFC champion Randy Couture believes that although the UFC has not shown an interest in cross-promoting in the past, the fact that both promotions have deals with ESPN clears a major obstacle out of the way. While reflecting on the potential cross-promoted super fight between he and Fedor Emelianenko, Couture admitted that M1's unwillingness to cooperate with the UFC played a major role, something that he doesn't believe would happen with the PFL. As he explained to MMA Junkie Radio,
I don't think the PFL has an ego problem like that. I think they would be happy to entertain a co-promotion between another promoter and themselves to make a big fight like that happen, certainly in the pay-per-view model that they're getting ready to roll out. So I don't think that's out of the question there.
Whether or not the UFC would be interested, of course, remains to be seen. Alexander Volkanovski wishes he had fought Conor McGregor. UFC featherweight kingpin Alexander Volkanovski has been tearing through the UFC's 145-pound division for years now. With a win over Jose Aldo and 3 wins over Max Holloway, Volkanovski has beaten every featherweight champion in UFC history with the exception of Conor McGregor. Given that, it's hard for him not to wonder what could have been. During a recent appearance on the MMA Fan podcast, Volk spoke about what a win over a prime Conor McGregor at featherweight would have meant to his legacy, stating,
yeah, again, everyone's going to talk about the money and, that's why you only want that fight. Yeah, of course, yeah. There's money in it, the circus around it, the hype, all of that. But you talk about legacy, then I would have beaten every other featherweight champion, and I plan on having the most defenses as well. So
Volkanovski will have a chance to add another title defense to his record when he competes against interim featherweight champion Yair Rodriguez this summer at UFC 290. After coming up short in a controversial fight against Islam Makhachev, Volkanovski seems to have his sights set on a rematch with the lightweight champ. After the fight at UFC 284, Volkanovski and Makhachev verbally agreed to a rematch, with Volkanovski even going so far as to say that he would be willing to fight in Abu Dhabi, given that Makhachev traveled down under to compete against him. Should he manage to secure gold at 155 pounds and McGregor were to pick up a big win in his comeback, the UFC could potentially look to book a fight between these two men. Of course, in order for that to happen, the stars would have to align. In the world of hypothetical super fights, how do you think a clash between featherweight McGregor and Volkanovski would have played out? Drop your predictions in the comment section below. And now for our breaking news story of the day. We have a UFC fighter pulling out of UFC Vegas 76. Vince Pichel is out against Benoit St. Denis. Benoit St. Denis will now fight against Ismail Bonfim at UFC Vegas 76. Who do you think will win in this matchup? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay up to date with MMA news every day. Here are the top comments from yesterday's video. Stipe definitely deserves more respect from the UFC. Anyone notice how Dana loved Khamzat until he couldn't make weight? Francis is right. UFC tried to do the same tricks with Nate's contract. Dana wanted Francis and Nate to lose. Slimeball Dana. You literally can't believe a single thing that comes out of Chael Sonnen's mouth. And those were the top comments from yesterday's video. If you want to be featured on our next video, make sure to leave a comment and don't forget to check out yesterday's video in case you missed it.